Hello and welcome to one of the most fun shows I get to do all year. Peter Thomas Fornatal here at an undisclosed location near Santa Anita. And I am joined, don't believe the graphic on the screen, folks, if you're watching here on YouTube. I am joined not by Bert and Ernie, but by two broadcasting legends, really, and a Hall of Fame writer in the midst. This is an unbelievable privilege for me to get to sit for a few minutes with Randy Moss and Jerry Bailey. Guys, how are things in the trailer?
We're in a back room of the NBC trailer.
Look, I'm from Fort Lauderdale. He's from Minneapolis. Things are cold for me. He was wearing shorts yesterday. So
and I don't know what goes on back here in this back room of the trailer, but there's a lava lamp back here.
Oh, nice.
Lava lamp and a Boys to Men CD. Now, how you combine the two of those things back here? And
somebody was stuck in the 90s back here.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking Lava Lamp. I want to be hearing Iron Butterfly and Boys to Men. I don't know, maybe a disco ball. It feels like the props and the music are misaligned.
We need shag carpet back here.
Guys, so happy you take time out of this insanely busy week. We've talked about this show before, almost like the iceberg theory, where the little tip of the iceberg is the stuff you guys get to talk about on TV because of the limitations of the medium. This is a chance for you to show some of what goes on underneath and go a little bit deeper in terms of your thoughts on these Breeders' Cup races. We're going to do a quick rattle through them. But before we get to that, I want to make sure people know, and Randy, you won't know this, I think, but Jerry will. What are the specifics of the NBC coverage for the Breeders' Cup? I want to make sure everybody's got that down and is watching the amazing work that you guys do.
He knows me pretty well, doesn't he? Jerry's got to check his phone. Look at this. He doesn't know it off the top of his head.
I'm disappointed, Jerry. Usually this is
USA. It's USA.
I think it's 1:30 to 4:30.
So it is on Friday. It is local time, 1 to 5.
Okay.
Pacific time on USA. That's for Friday. For Saturday, it's 1:30 to 3:30. I'm sorry, 10:30 to 12:30 local time, USA, and then they go over to NBC at 3:30 to 12:30 to 4 rather local.
Great stuff. People should be
USA
watching.
and then NBC.
Award-winning coverage, always entertaining. So much great stuff on there. Want to make sure that that people check that out.
Look,
General,
made fun of me for getting my phone. He could pull his phone out too, but it's not on there. So
well, yeah, but there's one other thing he didn't tell you. After the Classic, we go to Peacock.
Yeah, that's right, for the last two races.
For the last two races, right? So
excellent, great stuff. We'll definitely be watching along with interest. I don't know what happened. You didn't get the email I sent about the dress code for this show?
I told you there's a coat and tie requirement. He said definitely not. It's his fault.
Check this out.
Oh, no way. That's awesome.
Yeah. Santa Monica Flea Market.
Wow. Do you think that was like a crew
That's
jacket?
Got the lava lamp and the CD.
Yeah, that goes well with the lava lamp for sure. But now I'm thinking like Sister Sledge playing in the background. That's got a very cool vintage 70s look going on. Guys, let's rattle through. Let's get down to business here, though it would be more fun to just joke around for our allotted time today. Let's just start with the first race on Friday, Juvenile Turf Sprint. Jerry Bailey, who wins this race?
My comment on this race is there's absolutely no way to tell with such a small body of work for 2-year-olds going 5/8 on the grass. It's almost impossible. If you put a gun in my head, Crimson Advocate would be, to me, the most talented, but she hasn't run since winning the Queen Mary in June. She's got post 1. She could get buried down in there. So I'm actually going to default to who I think is the fastest horse in the race, and that's Big Evs.
Mm-hmm. All right. To me, when you're talking about sprints, dirt or turf, you gotta lean toward the Americans over the Europeans because our horses just typically have more gas. They don't go 1.5 miles like Europeans do, but 5/8 of a mile. All things being equal, I'll stick with Americans. And I'm not going to overthink this. I've been super high all year on No Name Mets. Mm-hmm. And I think inside of Big Evs, I think he's got as much or more early speed than Big Evs. He gets a jockey change from Paco Lopez to Irad Ortiz.
That is a big jockey change upgrade.
And I'm going to take No Name Mets. And one other thing about No Name Mets real quick. The horses that come out of the race that he came out of at Colonial, he got a 78 buyer speed figure, and it's pretty accurate when you look at it. most of the horses coming out of that race are improving 10, 12, 13 points in their next race. So I'm looking at that 78 maybe is a little more like a 90 or a 91. So I really like No Name.
And trainer George Weaver's on fire with young 2-year-olds of late.
Been amazing. Holds a heck of a hand in that race. Juvenile fillies. We play a game on the show sometimes. It's like name that tune. How few words can you do the race in? I think JK and I did this one each in one word. Is it just all about Tamara here? Any dissenting opinions?
Well, not as Lee Corso would say, not so fast.
My friend.
My friend.
Let's hear it.
Go ahead.
So, yeah, she looks on paper like she stands out, but you also have to look at horses, how they're coming into the Breeders' Cup, because there's other good horses in the race. How are they training? I don't, from what I have heard from a very good friend out here who watched these horses work all the time, she is not working as well as she did prior to her first 2 wins. And Todd Fletcher's filly, Candy, has a license to improve because and she's 2 for 2, even though she won, she was on a wrong lead back at Keeneland. She was very immature. I would think she would improve a little bit. And I have heard nothing but good things about Bill Mott's what is it?
Just FYI.
Just FYI. Now, she's won 2 for 2 as well. Not particularly fast numbers-wise in the Frizette over the sloppy track, but if you take into consideration maybe she didn't like to stop and won anyway and would be much better on a dry track, she might give the Tamara some competition.
Look, I mean, there's picking and there's betting. Numbers-wise, Tamara lays over the field, right? And she may not even need to run as fast as she ran last time in order to beat this field. But is she going to be overbet because she's the daughter of Beholder? Yes. That's the storyline. That's what everybody's talking about, right? Everybody's comparing her to her mom, which is unrealistic. So she is definitely going to be overhyped and overplayed just because of the pedigree. She'll probably be 3 to 5 in this spot. And I agree with Jerry that she's the most likely winner, but either just FYI or Candy would be better plays.
Juvenile fillies turf, USA or America for this one, Jerry?
So USA traditionally has dominated this race over the European. The one turf race that actually US does do much better than the Europeans. I don't think US is particularly strong this year, as they have been in other years. And I'm kind of landing on a filly named Carla's Way, number 9, trained by Simon Crisford. She early in her she won her first race. She was very rank early in the race, going 6 furlongs. They since found a breathing issue. They've corrected that breathing issue. She's learned how to relax in her races. I mean, she only lays second now. It's not like she comes out of the back, but she's learned how to do that, tracking a horse and relaxing. And she comes off a win in a Grade 2 race over there in Newmarket. I like her in this spot.
She's probably the horse to beat. I think she's even still been a little keener than I would like to see even after the operation. I don't really have a strong opinion about this race. Buku, I love the way visually she looked when she closed and she won the Jessamine. She went the last quarter and 23-2, just blew by the field late. Not a strong opinion, but she's 6 to 1, and I'll give Buku a little bit of an edge, but.
BC Juvenile. Will this one go towards the eastern states, New York, Kentucky, or is it going to stay with the home team? Randy, you kick this one off.
Oh, man. Look, you could find things to pick at on every one of these horses, okay? Prince of Monaco ran gigantic in the Best Pal. Not so gigantic when he won the Del Mar Futurity. And the fact that Baffert didn't run him around 2 turns since then, to me, is a red flag. I think he sensed that the horse kind of, bounced or whatever in the next start and needed extra time. And that kind of bothers me a little bit. Also, I think he's probably going to set the pace and get hounded by Fierceness from the Pletcher barn and maybe wind me up or somebody else in there as well. Muth ran a good race winning the American Pharoah, but had a dream trip sitting on the rail all the way around that he's not going to get from post position number 10 probably. Look, to me, the best of all the preps was the Breeders' Futurity and Locked. He got a terrible trip and he won anyway. But I don't like the east to west thing for Locked and Todd Pletcher. I'm going to pick him. I think he's the horse to beat, but not with a tremendous amount of confidence.
I agree with everything Randy just said. I like Locked. I do think he's been through the war already. He's overcome adversity, which these California horses typically have not, because they're Baffert, and he has 3 in the race. And so if you want to go through on the rail, you just say, hey, buddy, here I come. And they get the garden trip. They do. Or there's a 5-horse field, and they just get a very what I call antiseptic trip. They're just stalking on the outside, no dirt in their face. But I think that's the trip that Muth gets today. From the 10 post, I think he just falls in there. He relaxes off the early lead, maybe a couple of lengths off the lead at worst. And I don't love him overlocked, but I like him.
Juvenile turf. Am I nuts, Jerry Bailey, to think that this could be a Ballydoyle 1, 2, 3?
Let me get to my PP. Start it out, Randy.
Well, look, 1, 2, 3. You may be a little nuts, Pete. But as far as 1, to me, I like River Tiber as much as I like any horse all day Friday. Even Tamara. I really think that he's sitting on a big race. According to the Coolmore people, he had excuses in his last 2 races when he was 3rd behind Van Dijk, who's one of the best sprinters in Europe right now for 2-year-olds. He worked at Ballydoyle with Unquestionable, one of the other Coolmore horses in here, before they shipped to California, and apparently made Unquestionable look like a claimer. Just pulled away from him and opened up. So good post, Ryan Moore. This is a race that the Europeans typically dominate as opposed to the juvenile fillies turf. And I think River Tiber is definitely the worst to beat. But I do really like endlessly the American. We both think he's the best of the Americans in here. Yeah. Visually been very impressive.
He makes his own luck. He's 3 for 3. He breaks well enough to get a good position into the first turn, 4 or 5 lengths off the lead, and then he can sit and wait. And if there is a seam that he has to get through in a heartbeat, his acceleration, his turn of foot through the middle of the race at full speed is unbelievable. So he can take advantage of that, and that's a big plus in turf racing, be able to hit those seams and get through those holes and take advantage of it. I would agree with Randy. River Tiber is probably the best European. When I was over at Ballydoyle in June, Aiden said this was my best one at that time. And he went 3 for 3. And then he came back and he was a couple of seconds and said, Randy said he did have a couple of excuses. I won't go into it, but he will improve off those races. And their record speaks for itself in this race. So there's your
love it. On to the Saturday and the dirt mile we'll start with. Will there be a dry eye in the house after the dirt mile, Randy?
Yes.
They'll be tearing up their tickets and crying.
Unless people are crying in delight when Stage Raider comes rallying down the middle of the track and wins at 15-1. Look,
nice one.
I just don't like this race. I was going to pick Practical Move, and unfortunately, we all know what happened to him. Here's the thing about Cody's Wish. Okay, he's apparently they say he's training like a beast. Okay, and we know that he may be just the best horse in the race, and it may not make any difference. Okay. But what you're getting with Cody's Wish is a few things that to me are red flags against playing a horse like this at even money. First of all, he's better around 1 turn than 2 turns. Okay. He won the mile last year around 2 turns, barely, but he was coming off a gigantic 112 buyer speed figure in the Forego. He was in unbelievably sharp form. And he was running on a racetrack at Keeneland that would favor that kind of running style more so than Santa Anita. All right. That's one strike against him, the fact that it's 2 turns. Secondly, his last 2 races were both disappointments. The Whitney, okay, you can say, all right, he didn't want to go a mile and 8, but he should run better than that. He got to be 10 lengths in there. He was disappointing. Then he came back in the Vosburg and he was running against a bunch of bums. And he should have just killed him. And instead, he was life and death to get by a horse that would be 20-1 in this spot. So that's back-to-back disappointing efforts for this horse, after a gigantic race in the Met Mile. So maybe he's tailing off a little bit, combined with going from east to west and combined with now having to go 2 turns. And there's no pace in this race either.
Right.
Very little pace.
Yeah. So just to piggyback off what he just said, last year going into the Breeders' Cup turf mile, dirt mile at Keeneland, he ran in the Forego. That was his career best, the race before the Breeders' Cup as Randy pointed out, a very ordinary Vosburg, the race before the Breeders' Cup. So I'm kind of in agreement. He might not be in his best form. I'm going with Zozos. He makes the lead. I'm not sure that he's as good around 2 turns as he is around 1 turn, but he's won at a mile and 16th around 2 turns. If those races had been a mile, he would have won those as well. So being the only speed, he controls the pace. And I would like to see Friday what the track is like.
Yes.
If it's not speed conducive, I might go a different direction. But if it's playing the usual Santa Anita, I will go with Zozos.
So here's my thinking quickly about Stage Raider. All right, I'm gonna try to be Cody Zwift. You already heard why. Charge It. I've had enough of him. I'm done with Charge It. No more Charge It. Skippy Longstocking made an easy lead at Charlestown on an off track. No. National Treasure. You got Baffert. You got a mile's probably his best distance, maybe, but he hadn't improved an inch since he was a 2-year-old. He's staying the same. And his big win was in the Preakness when he was absolutely gifted an easy early lead. You know, he's not the kind of horse you can play with confidence. Zozos is probably going to make the lead, but I think he's better around 1 turn. He got a really soft pace around 1 turn at Churchill Downs, and Stage Raider was still running hard at him down the lane. Stage Raider is going to save ground. He's probably going to be better. He's a half to justify. He's probably going to be better around 2 turns than he is 1 turn. And I think at a big price, with all the other question marks in here, I'll take Stage Raider.
It's a compelling case. And if you're not watching on YouTube, folks, you're missing out because, well, let's just put it this way. Marcel Marceau has nothing on Jerry Bailey and his miming in the background as Randy talks. Very entertaining stuff. Filly and Mare Turf. A lot of people have this as a match race between Warm Heart and Inspiral. I think that Chad Brown and In Italian have a chance to wire and maybe go one better here. Is it one of that triumvirate that you guys are interested in, or you want to pull in something at a bigger price?
I think Inspiral is the most probably one of the most talented horses running all weekend. But she's never run a mile. She's never run beyond a mile. So you have to assume that she would be as effective, and she uses a tremendous burst of speed, to just run her rivals off their feet over in Europe. That burst of speed is not going to be there going a mile and a quarter. The farther you go, the more diminished those quick bursts are. So it's more of a gradual close. Warm Heart, on the other hand, has been going longer. She's been going a mile and a half. She has won at a mile and a quarter. So she has the opposite issue of Inspiral. She's backing down to a mile and a quarter. And can she have acceleration to get through the field at that shorter distance? And in terms of In Italian, she tried this last year at Keeneland at a mile and 3/16, and it didn't work out. So I don't know that it will work out going a mile and a quarter, even though it's down a little bit hill early and it's a firmer course. So it's a short mile and a quarter. I'm going to go with Warm Heart, actually.
All right. I think it's a match race between Inspiral and In Italian. And I wouldn't be surprised in the least if In Italian goes wire to wire, because Inspiral's going to have to be just fine at a mile and a quarter. And Inspiral is going to have to run her big A race, in my opinion, to run down In Italian. What I'm worried about Warm Heart is what Jerry said, the mile and a half. To me, even though she's a 3-year-old filly, she would be in the Breeders' Cup Turf. To me, that would be their preferred race, except they already have 3 horses, Coolmore does, running a mile and a half in the turf. So they just decide, okay, we'll run her a mile and a quarter, even though it's a short mile and a quarter down the hill, and hope that she can handle it okay.
So here, I'm going to play jockey here, okay?
Please.
So In Italian goes to the lead. Inspiral knows she might be the horse to beat. So even though Frankie Dettori, who's riding Inspiral, knows he's distance limited, he has to really be judicious on rashing out her speed. He's got to go after In Italian at some point in that far turn if she's got a 2 or 3 length advantage on him. So I think he moves early, presses In Italian so she doesn't get away. Warm Heart sucks in behind them and then picks up the pieces late.
Stamina could come into play. There's a contrarian thing with the downhill starts on these races. You think, and I've been positioning it all through the season as if it becomes like this cheaters mile and a quarter that milers can win. And sometimes they can. Look back at Day at the Spa, far inferior filly to In Italian. But when you look at the stats, closers do pretty well. And I think maybe part of that is the way those front runners build up speed down the hill can lead to a collapse. Maybe it won't be too sharp for Warm Heart. I'm still picking In Italian. Is the filly and mare sprint as simple as Goodnight Olive?
Hate her post position.
Talent-wise, yes.
That's the big deal.
But, I mean, she's the most talented filly in the race by at least a couple of lengths, I believe. However, put the jockey cap on again. If you go back to Churchill Downs in the Derby Distaff, what happened to her? She got trapped in behind horses. Wicked Halo trapped her in behind horses, and I forgot who beat her that day. But Mataraya beat her. Only because Goodnight Olive was trapped, hopelessly trapped, until it was far too late. The very same thing could happen again. Ida goes out along with Clearly Unhinged. They lap on each other. Society laps on them. So you got stacked out 1, 2, 3, not more than a length and a half between all those. Goodnight Olive is trapped in there. And I think she stays trapped in there because Mataraya will be the fourth horse, keeping her in there, getting the jump on her, turning for home. It could work out to where Goodnight Olive gets trapped for too long and it's too late to catch up. So to me, it's a little bit of a play against, especially since she's going to be probably 3 to 5 or 2 to 5.
Loved your race design there, Jerry. Just amazing to get to hear that from you. But who's the beneficiary of that scenario?
Probably a closer. Kirsten Bosch probably not fast enough to run these fillies down. But Mataraya did it once. I don't know if she can do it again, but she's going to be a price.
You know, Society obviously has big numbers. She's hard to trust because when she gets in against the very best horses, she tends to kind of go the other direction. She's a bully against horses that she figures to beat, and she opens up and she wins by huge margins and runs big numbers. But then when she has to really lay it down to beat horses of this caliber, she just kind of seems to, not be that competitive. So that worries me a little bit about her. I think Goodnight Olive is a single, even from the rail. I trust Irad to try to find a way to be able to find a way to get out. And I think she's a free space, in my opinion.
Breeders' Cup Mile. I thought the draw was very interesting here with so many horses I would have given chances with better posts getting posted to the outside. I wound up picking this for a crazy turn up and went with Cheryl Spite at a giant number. Very curious to hear how you guys think this race is going to play out.
We think alike in this spot, I think.
Cheryl Spite runs really good at Keeneland. So his performance last year, I think he's a Keeneland specialist. So post is important here. It really is. Going a mile, you really can't get hung out. But the horses drawn outside, Songline, I love. I love Gina Romantica from the inside. Songline just drops out the back, and her close is unbelievable. If you look back at a couple of her Japanese races, she makes up so much ground the last 3/16 of a mile. It's crazy. I also like number 11, Kalina. Same connections as Goldakova, who won this race 3 times. So I can't separate them, so I'm going to go 2, 10, 11.
Yeah, to me, Gina Romantica. Look, you can overthink this. She ran the same day, same card, same distance as Up to the Mark and Master of the Seas, right? I think an hour apart. The paces were identical. The distances were identical. The trips between Gina Romantica and Up to the Mark were identical. And yet Gina Romantica ran almost a full half second faster. And the times are accurate.
Yep.
Gina Romantica is really improving at the right time. She's 15-1 in the program. She's got an inside post. I think she gets a good trip. You got the Chad Brown factor here. I like Gina Romantica to win at a nice number.
Great case.
I wasn't brave enough to pick a solo, so I went for a trifecta.
That's all right. You're giving the people what they need. Breeders' Cup Distaff. Is there any way this pace does not boil over?
No.
Who's the beneficiary?
And don't forget who's your filly when you're talking about the pace either, because Tom Amoss wants her on the lead.
And he adds blinkers.
And she draws the rail. So, throw that one into all the other speed horses that we had already been talking about. So it really, it makes Idiomatic an automatic bet against, in my opinion. You have to. If you're a horse player looking for value and she's the favorite and she's coming off races in which she just is completely left alone on the lead and controls the pace, and now she's going to be in a toxic dogfight.
Same thing for Adair Manor. She's been beating up on horses having things her own way, which she will not get on Saturday.
And here comes Clairiere.
She's the most talented closer in the race. And you're going to go with a closer with this kind of a pace, and she's the most talented one. To me, it's pretty simple.
Both 2 votes for Clairiere in the distaff is what I'm hearing.
Yep.
Breeders' Cup Turf, one of the strongest group of foreign horses to show up here. I just can't wait to see this clash. Who's going to win it?
So I'll speak for Randy as well. We've been in love with Up to the Mark since January. We had a phone conversation in January or February about this horse leading into the Kentucky Derby weekend and what he had done. And then, of course, we're watching him in April. I don't know if he's good enough to beat the Europeans, but I have a suspicion he might be. And I think tactically he will be mid-pack. I think he gets to jump on the Europeans. As much respect as I have for Gus Rodin, I still think he beats him. Now, Mosadaf, he's stretching out. 1.5 miles is not his game. He's run it 4 times. He has won once, but I believe that was on synthetic. It was on synthetic. So look at Warlike Goddess. She's going to drop out the back. I don't think she catches up. King of Steel just ran 2 weeks ago on the most demanding kind of surface you can run on. Then he ships over. There's no way he can be, I don't think, on his game enough to beat the best. So
Agreed.
I'm going to go in just a slight nod with Up to the Mark.
All right.
You keep the distance. I just have to ask about the distance. I'd have loved Up to the Mark in the mile. I see no reason why he's going to stay against these types.
It bothers me. It does. It bothers me. And the only thing that bothers Todd a little bit is that the horse can be kind of aggressive in the first part of his races at times. And he's worried that, at a mile, it's not a problem because he said, you can settle the paces faster. But if it's going to be a slow pace, he's a little bit worried that he's going to settle the way he needs to settle to be able to kick with the horses like Auguste Rodin and horses like that. To me, if I'm going to play an American in one of the toughest turf races that we've seen in a long time in this country, it's going to have to be a horse that's coming off like a 110 buyer or a 111 buyer or something like that. Because I think that's what it's going to take to win this race. And Up to the Mark hasn't shown that he's that good. Plus, you got the 1.5 mile factor. But I mean, we have,
slightly different opinion.
But you want a moonshot here? I'll give you a moonshot to throw in your exotics here. We saw what the Japanese horses did the last time the Breeders' Cup was in Southern California at Del Mar. There's a horse in here. He's got the rail. He's got a great draw, a Sharyar. All right. You look at his form. This is a horse he's run in the last 2 Japan Cups. He was 3rd and 2nd, beaten 3/4 of a length in the most recent Japan Cup last November. Right. He ran twice against Equinox, the best turf horse in the world. His last race was awful. It was terrible. He had a breathing condition. They've had throat surgery on him since that race. He's bounced back to work extremely well in Japan. They've been raving about how well he's been doing after the throat surgery. Hey, he's going to be 20-1.
Yeah.
And there's enough form to suggest that he could light the board and be a key to some pretty nice exotic payoffs.
No guts. Mark, Auguste Rodin, and you take his long shot and you box him up.
There you go. The Classic. We talked about this race in this medium a couple of weeks ago. Randy, it's changed a lot since then. How has your opinion evolved?
It's not the best Classic, but my opinion really hasn't evolved at all. And apologies, because last year when we did this, we had a lot of differing opinions. That's very unusual. Jerry and I think alike in a lot of ways when we handicap and stuff. White Abarrio.
You've come around. You expressed a lot of concern about the feet when we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. He has worked since and apparently looked great. So those fears are assuaged.
We saw him an hour ago.
How'd he look?
Fantastic. They were jogging him to show the veterinary, we both fed him a peppermint.
The old peppermint angle.
Yeah.
I hope that's not illegal with all these new veterinary rules.
Yeah. Well, look, with all these dropouts, I tell you this, if Arabian Nights a total bet against, in my opinion, and he may win and I may have egg on my face, whatever. So
why do you say that? Why?
Okay.
Yeah, I want to hear that.
Because he needs the lead to win, and he's not going to get the lead.
There you go.
There are 3 scenarios. Number 1, he goes to the lead, opens up, settles on the front end. In that case, he probably wins wire to wire. But to do that, he's got to outrun Saudi Crown enough to clear him and drop over. And the mission for Saudi Crown is to set the pace. That's the strategy. That's the plan. And Saudi Crown's a fast horse. He's not going to blow by Saudi Crown early and drop over because they're going to be hustling Saudi Crown out of the gate. That's not going to happen. Second scenario, they go head and head. Do you think that pace will be a little fast? And do you think Arabian Night at that point can kick away and hold off all the closers? He's going to have to be way better than he's ever run before. Third scenario, he relaxes nicely sitting outside of Saudi Crown, which he's never done before. And then, as we've heard it explained, he just goes to the turn and he blows by Saudi Crown.
That's not happening.
That's not happening. You look at Saudi Crown's PPs, he fights.
He's tough.
He's tough. He fights. The best Arabian Night can hope for in that situation is a head-and-head dogfight when he goes up and hooks Saudi Crown. So
they might be looking for somewhere to lie down in the last furlong if that happens.
It doesn't set up well for Arabian Night, and he's going to be the favorite. And he's got no figs. So
he's just told you how the complexion race will set up, and I totally agree with him. And I think it'll be Saudi Crown and Arabian Night up there 1-2. Arabian Night will have to expend way too much energy to get by Saudi Crown early, and he'll just flatten out. White Abarrio sits 3 or 4 lengths, 2 lengths, whatever the pace is behind him, whatever Rad Ortiz wants to do, and he just waits for time. He's going to kick out, and he's just going to go.
And he's the fastest horse anyway. Plus, he's got Karma on his side, Rick Dutrow.
And there are these distance questions a little bit with the mile and a quarter for him, but I just think back to St. Liam. Remember, it was the same thing. Clearly the fastest horse. Will he get the extra distance? Oh, he got it all right. I think it's the same thing with White Abarrio. We're singing from the hymn book.
Do we have time to tell you a quick story?
Of course.
Okay, now this is for the mile and a quarter concerns for this horse. Rick Dutrow told us this morning. He worked in 5/8 of a mile 3 times. Okay. And he told the exercise rider each time, when you get to the wire, don't try to make him gallop out. Don't grab a hold of him. Just ease up a little bit and just let the horse do what the horse wants to do. After 5/8 of a mile, the horse went another complete lap around the track, all the way back to the finish line, galloped out 1 mile and 5/8.
3 times.
3 times in a row.
That's great.
Okay.
Three different workouts in a row, not that day.
Yeah. 3 different workouts in a row. So, 1 mile and an 1/8 was no problem in the Whitney. And given the way he's training, it looks like, to me, it looks like 1 mile and a quarter. I'm not even concerned about that.
It's music to my ears. It's the classic, so we'll go too long on it. Any count for Ushba Tesoro? He's the other one I'm a little interested in.
Yeah, I mean, he won the Dubai World Cup. Japan has been doing very well shipping over here for the Breeders' Cup of late. So, yeah, I wouldn't go to sleep on him.
But my concern about Ushba Tesoro is, he won the Dubai World Cup. Okay.
Not the best rendition of the Dubai World Cup. It wasn't a strong field.
It was not a strong field at all. And we don't publish buyer speed figures for Dubai, but we have speed charts. And I can tell you that the Dubai World Cup figure was 5 points slower than Derma Sotogake ran in the UAE Derby. So what do you give Derma Sotogake? We estimated like a 101, 106 or a 100, 105, right? And I don't think 100 or 101 for Ushba Tesoro is going to be good enough to beat White Abarrio.
Yeah, that's not going to lay a glove on the white horse, as Dutrow calls him. Let's just
and then what about Derma Sotogake? If he runs a 105, 106.
He loves Derma Sotogake. He likes saying the name, actually.
It is beautiful pronunciation.
But the fact that he hasn't run since the
and they said his year was over, and then they reversed field. It's just too weird to me. But at 40-1, if you have some bets where you can spread, I totally see it. I'm not talking anybody off, but that's why I can't embrace him to the same degree as Ushba.
We'll speed through these last 2.
Yeah, real quick on the last 2, and then I'm going to ask you the big question about a best bet for Friday and Saturday each, if you want to start thinking about that. But Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint.
3 words. Roses for Deborah.
Woo!
I like Motorius. They're right next to each other. Roses for Deborah is going to get the jump on Motorius, but he's in really good form. He's won over this turf course at this distance. So there's your exacta.
Let's wrap it with the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Is Elite Power nailed on in this spot?
No, not a cinch. He's got a chance. He's a defending champ, and you got to beat him to win, I think. But I think Randy and I both land on the same horse. The true speed of the race is Speedboat Beach.
Mm-hmm. It's a sprint with no speed.
Right.
Who knew this could ever happen? I mean, Speedboat Beach is the only true speed in the race. I mean, yeah, they're going to use Gunite a little bit. He's got like, you know, you look at his race at 22-3, 22-2, you know, a couple races even slower than that, 23. I mean, Speedboat Beach is West Coast Baffert speed. You know, he's been drilling on him since that last race to really sharpen him up. He's probably going to open up a length and a half. On dirt, California
gives Mike Smith, if he doesn't win on Tamara, he'll be the oldest jockey, even if he does, to win a Breeders' Cup race at 58 years old.
That's right. He'll be a day older, so he breaks his own record.
And I know I'm a huge Elite Power fan, but I just didn't like his last race that much. I think he may be kind of, you know, a little maybe like Cody's Wish, maybe just a little bit over the top. He's had a good campaign.
Gunite will run well.
Yeah, he should.
But we don't know if he can run down Speedboat Beach.
Best bets for Friday. We'll do Friday, then Saturday. You guys have kind of tipped your hand on this, but let's do it for formality, and maybe we'll make a neat little internet clip of it, have everybody go over to YouTube and watch the whole video. Randy, give me your best bet for Friday.
You mean a surest winner?
Best bet.
Best bet, however you want to interpret that. Some
River
people say
Tiber.
like a banker. Some people would make it a value thing. It's one of those. It's a little nebulous, like MVP.
Yeah. 5-2, you know, almost triple your money. Well, it is triple your money. River Tiber.
I'm going with Muth because I think he'll be 3-1, 3.5-1.
Saturday best bets. Jerry, we send it to you first on this one.
Wow. I'm going to go with White Barrio. I don't think he'll be the favorite. I think he'll be second or third choice, and I think he's one of the surest winners.
And I can't separate Gino Romanica and Roses for Deborah. I think Roses for Deborah is probably in an easier spot than Gino Romanica is. So I'll go Roses for Deborah.
So you can split stakes too. It's our game. We make up the rules. Bert and Ernie, this was just tremendous. We're going to be watching you.
Told you we should have wore a tie. God.
I know. Hey, Bert.
All weekend. This is just such great fun. We really, really appreciate we do this. Get so many comments. People watching, leave a comment with your best bets. If you're listening to a pod version of this, go over to YouTube. You got to watch. It's just great stuff. The comedy stylings of Randy Moss and Jerry Bailey. Guys, enjoy your Breeders' Cup, and may you win all your photos.